No matter when you're picking, you can build a league winner as long as you start smart. I'm Bob Harris. Welcome to On the Hot Seat. We're going to sit here and talk about mapping out the optimal three-player starts from every spot in the first round. Pick 1 through 12 and a standard PPR 12-team redraft league. To do that, I bring on my good friend Michael Fabiano. You know him from SI.com, previously NFL Network, Sirius XM Fantasy, like me, Fantasy Sports Writers Hall of Famer. I think we went in at the same time.
We did, yeah, same year.
Oh, that's crazy.
You
Go
of
ahead,
course,
Scarlett, comment.
having been, having been in the industry for what, 30 years at that point already? I mean,
30, 300, 3,000, it doesn't matter. Just everybody, if you get a chance, go to SI.com, check out Fab's work. And this broadcast here, this hot seat, is going to be a reflection of some articles, a series of articles that Fab's wrote that gave me the idea for this. And I think it is a great idea because you never know. We draft in a lot of drafts. You never know where you're going to pick from. But it really doesn't matter where you pick from as long as you get off to the, you have a plan in place to make it work. You can do that. So let's start out when you're picking, let's say 101 to 104, that first group of picks. I'm looking at your favorite ideal starting from 101 is Jamar Chase, Ladd McConkey, and Garrett Wilson. I'm going to acknowledge that you probably like Wilson more than you like McConkey, but we're going a little bit like trying to make it realistic, reflecting ADP. With pick 102, Bijan, McConkey, Robinson, Ladd McConkey, and Jackson Smith-Njigba in the third. From the 103, Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey at 2. Then in the third round, you're going Garrett Wilson or Kyron Williams. Pick 104, CeeDee Lamb as your first pick. Drake London in round 2, Kyron Williams in round 3. I like these starts. Talk a little bit about the 3 wide receiver start, and also just kind of like, generally, how do you feel about how you open your draft, just build in general?
Things have changed so much, since we started doing this, and wide receivers are just so valuable now. And you see more and more good running backs who are available in round 4, round 5. We've seen that all across the fantasy football landscape. Now, I will say this: the leagues that you and I are in are different than the leagues that the viewers are in, and so we kind of know what the trends are going to be. And we know to a degree where the players are going to go, but I'm not a slave to ADP. And there are certainly some players that I think are getting drafted too highly. And Ladd McConkey is one of those players, for example. I loved him last season, Bob. He was like one of my sleepers, Laddie Daddy. People made fun of me for calling him that all season long, and I don't care. But he was
prodigy.
It was very good. And I'm not saying I don't love him this year, but my God, he's getting drafted so high now.
Yeah, currently going as wide receiver 11, right around the 22, pick 22. So he's moved well into the second round in most cases.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd get him in the third.
I'd rather have Garrett Wilson. I mean, catching passes from Justin Fields as the number 1 target in the Jets passing game with no questions whatsoever. So when you talk about like the 101, if I'm going to get 3 wide receivers there, those would certainly be 3 receivers. You're going to get Chase, obviously, because you have the number 1 overall pick. But I may even go after Wilson first and then try and get McConkey. And again, all leagues are different, and we always keep that in mind. But then you're going to go through, rounds 4, round 5. You're almost certainly going to take a couple of running backs. But there's also, some good running backs out there, in those rounds nowadays. It's not like it used to be. So. And then when you go into the 102, well, you're going to take Bijan. And I actually wrote an article over at Sports Illustrated that'll be up at some point in the next week or so about why Bijan Robinson is the number 1 running back in fantasy football this upcoming season. And even, hell, did you hear what Saquon Barkley said about him? Like, I think if Saquon were in a fantasy league and he had the number 1 pick, he might draft Bijan over himself.
Fabs, it's Bijan, if you have not got the memo. He came out.
Listen, it's Bijan, Kamara. People know what I'm talking about there, Mr. Harris. So Robinson is the number 1 running back in fantasy football. Darn you.
Yeah, it's true.
But once I get him at 102, I'm going to go wide receivers with the next 2 picks. Unless a running back falls to me that I'm like, I have to take him. It's unlikely because I know that there's going to be good running backs out there in rounds 4, round 5, and that are so. The 2 guys that I have are McConkey and then Jackson Smith-Njigba. A couple of guys who work out of the slot, although the Seattle thing is going to be pretty fascinating with Cooper Kupp there. And then at 103, Justin Jefferson for me is the third best player. He's dealing with a little injury at this point, should be okay for the start of the season. And then it will be either, a Lad McConkey or Garrett Wilson, who's ever available. And then in round 3, I don't know if I want to go away from a running back there. I think the best bet, the best value is going to be a player like a Kyron Williams. And then that's where he's going to end up coming in at 104 as well, where I'm getting CD at 4, fourth overall. And then I'm going to love the Drake, who I do love this season, Drake London. He was a breakout for me last season, and he certainly met expectations. And then with those two wide receivers, I feel pretty good about going with Kyron in the third round.
Yeah, Kyron is the guy that Williams is the guy that's falling to me in third round a lot of times if I'm going 2 wide receivers early on. And for right now, Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 15. That's the thing we've all learned, though, drafting multiple times is if you like players, you have to go up for them. If you're a little ambivalent on Lad McConkey, you think, man, maybe I could wait and he'll slip around, especially if you're at the turn. Your odds are a little better there, closer you are.
I just want to ask you I want to ask you a question about Lad. And again, I love him. Dude, I was beating the drum for Lad McConkey. But how often has a wide receiver finished in the top 12 in a Greg Roman offense, Bob?
Well, it happens. It's usually one single guy. We've seen the Michael Crabtree
not in the top 10,
the Anquan
not in the top
Bolden.
12. Not that high. Not that high. There's Crabtree you mentioned, Anquan Bolden. Like, it's very rare for a wide receiver to be in the top 12 in Greg Roman's offense. And that's why I don't necessarily want to take him as high as he's going right now.
That's fair. And if you're waiting a little longer, you probably won't get him very often. You mentioned Justin Jefferson having a little bit of a hamstring. Well, you're at this point, like I try to remind everyone not to look down the drinking straw at the moment by moment developments. But you see, let's say Justin Jefferson, wow, he's going to miss a couple of weeks with a hamstring. He's working with a quarterback we haven't seen before. Is this enough maybe sometimes to get you to shift? Like CeeDee Lamb is really close. Also, George Pickens is there and having a phenomenal camp. How do you balance those things out? And how do you keep the perspective this time of year when you're like staring right in the face of developments in real time?
Yeah, I can see people getting a little concerned and rather playing it safe than sorry, because as you mentioned, the difference between CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson is minuscule. It's very small. And in fact, there are probably people out there who like CeeDee more because the quarterback situation is Dak Prescott versus JJ McCarthy. Now, I would also argue that JJ McCarthy is in an offensive system that made Sam Darnold an NFL bust, a journeyman, the top 10 quarterback last season. So
Correct.
we can have that argument on another program. But yeah, if you're playing the safe route, then yeah, take CeeDee Lamb at 3, and then Justin Jefferson certainly won't fall beyond 4 or 5.
Yeah, and it's funny because I do think I wrote about this in last week's Fantasy Notebook. You can go read that on the Football Guys website, people. Just the high level of success pretty much every quarterback has had, and certainly Justin Jefferson has had with every single quarterback he's played with in Minnesota, including Josh Dobbs, Darren Hall, Nick Mullen, Sean Mannion. I mean, whoever's been on the field, he's been fine with. Talk about a little bit in your early portion of your builds, how much you're paying attention to like floor and ceiling. I mean, like obviously all your first round picks are are high ceiling guys and also high floor. But after that, are you trying to mix and match a little bit in rounds 2, maybe a high floor guy with an upside play in 3?
Yeah, well, I feel like even still, like I'll use an example, Jackson Smith-Njigba from last season as a third round pick. Bob, I don't know if he's ever going to get better than he was last season. He was pretty damn good last season, but I don't know that he's going to end up moving up into, say, the top 5. So in round 3, I just feel safe with Jackson Smith-Njigba. Right. Garrett Wilson was a top 10 wide receiver last season. People forget that. Like, people poo-poo Garrett Wilson like he's, a bum. And he was a top 10 wide receiver last season. And he had Devontae Adams stealing all kinds of targets from him in the second half. He still finished in the top 10 with a quarterback who a lot of people suggest, oh, he's past his prime, he's over the hill. And that's, I like Garrett Wilson. So I think Garrett Wilson hasn't hit his ceiling yet, Bob.
Yeah, I would remind people that, if you're worried about Justin Fields not throwing the ball, DJ Moore, you might have had those same worries about him 2 years ago when he was wide receiver 6 playing with Fields for 13 games and 4 games with Tyson
And
Bagent.
who else? Who else the Jets have catching balls? Wesley Walker. Let's see, Wayne Corbett, Braylon Edwards. No, they have nobody.
Josh Reynolds.
That's the point I'm trying to make. They have nobody else. Oh, stop it with Josh Reynolds. They don't have anybody. I mean, like Alan Lazard. I mean, they don't have anybody else. So I gotta. I mean, I gotta be. I think it's crazy that Ladd McConkey's going ahead of Garrett Wilson. I'll just say it right now. I think it's bananas. I love Laddie Daddy. I love him. He's not in an offense that's going to produce on a week-to-week basis for a wide receiver to finish in the top 12 in fantasy points. He's just not.
Seems weird that you call the child prodigy a daddy, but that's just me. Let's go to picks 105.
It's lazy because lad and dad rhyme. It's just lazy on my part.
It falls right into line for you. Picks 105 through 108, the middle range of the draft. At 105, you like Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London, and Wilson as your top 3 picks. I think that'd be a pretty damn good start.
Very good.
106, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry and CMC, then McConkey or Wilson. You're going to be pushing it to get Henry or certainly McCaffrey right now. His ADP has climbed up to the tail end of round 1.
Let people take him in the first round. I'm not touching him with a 39.5-foot pole in the first round. I'm not. I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand why this is happening. This reminds me of, I believe it was maybe 2003. I can't remember the exact year, but Marshall Faulk. It was like one of the last, like, really good seasons that he had. And, there were some knee issues. And I remember having a draft and I took him high because he was Marshall Faulk. And it just ended up being a disaster. And I love Marshall. And at that point, I always am apprehensive to draft a guy who's, I mean, let's be honest, he's been a bust 3 of the last 5 years, Bob, because he can't stay healthy. He's 29. The Niners are going to ask him to have a big workload because they don't have Jordan Mason anymore. They don't have Elijah Mitchell anymore. Obviously, they got Garendo there and the rookie out of Oregon, Jordan. So, like, is he going to be able to handle all this work? And the Niners might not be a good team either. I mean, Brandon Ayuk, we don't know when he's coming back. Ricky Pearsall, I like him, but he's not durable. They lost a gazillion players in the offseason. We don't even know what this team is going to look like. And so I think it's crazy that McCaffrey, and you and I talked about this before we started recording. Like right now, he's what, in the top 10?
Yes, 9 overall in ADP. He had two great years.
It's insane to me.
He had 2 great years prior to last year, though.
But I know, but that was how many years ago, Bob?
22 and 23. He was offensive player of the year at 23.
And now he's 29 years old. And in the 4 games he played last year, he averaged 12 points a game.
Derrick Henry's even older.
But and I will use this against you because you've said this to me before.
That's true.
But Derrick Henry is not human.
And
I've made the argument that he is human, but he's kind of like a unicorn type of human. Right. I'd rather have Derrick Henry than McConkey all day long. All day long. Derrick Henry, for the most part in his career, has been durable. He's in an offense that's extremely good.
Let me finish.
Runs the ball very well. The Niners, we don't know what they're going to be.
Let me finish this out. 107, you have Malik Neighbors, Giants wide receiver, Henry or CMC, McConkey or Wilson is your third pick. Yep. 108, Saquon Barkley, how the mighty have fallen, but
so where do you have Saquon ranked?
Well, I probably have him ranked as my running back 4 right now. I'd probably be more interested in waiting and taking a Derrick Henry in this case, but current ADP has Saquon going fairly high still. He's number 2. He's running back 1 overall in current ADP across the consensus ADP. Bijan Robinson is going as running back 2. Jahmyr Gibbs is 3 with the 8th pick overall. And so there you have it. You're like, so what you're saying, Michael Fabiano will not have a lot of Saquon Barkley on his rosters this year. That's true.
Bob, you know me maybe better than anybody in the fantasy football industry. We're going to peel back the curtain here a little bit. We talk about this stuff all the time. Saquon Barkley is coming off a magical season. I always tell people to beware the magical season. Always beware the magical season. He's gonna go into a season where every single historical running back trend is going against him. Okay, and you will make fun of me all day long until the cows come home about my trends and how I love that stuff. But first off, the curse of 370. You know what it is. A lot of the people out there listening know what it is. It's tough to come back from a season with that much work and duplicate what you did the previous year. He's had over 400 carries between the regular season and the postseason. The Eagles leaned on him heavily in the playoffs. Okay. That's another trend. Hard for a running back to come back from. Oh, and by the way, of the running backs who've rushed for 2,000 yards in a single season, every single one saw a decline of at least 99 fantasy points the following year. And that was Eric Dickerson, who had the 99. Everybody else was in triple digits. And some of them were way bad, okay, in terms of the decline. And then your favorite, he's on the Madden cover. Now, again, that doesn't really matter to me. I just like to throw it out there because you get mad at me and I like to hear the old man yell. Saquon Barkley, I still have him in my top 8. He's still a first-round pick. But I'm telling you right now, folks, if Saquon Barkley comes within 70 points of what he did last season, I'd be shocked. Okay, I would be shocked. And he's also 28. He has had injury issues in the past. And what does Bob Harris always say? And I'm not talking about the stuff we can't say right now on the air. Don't draft last year's best team.
Look, it's true. And like everything you're saying, I totally agree with. I mean, I'm not going to talk anyone out of drafting Saquon Barkley. He has things going for him that a lot of the people we've talked about don't. A great offensive line, one of the 2 best offensive lines in football. Jahmyr Gibbs also in that club. With those.
Bob, do you know who's in that 2,000-yard club?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, Eric Dickerson, O.J. Simpson. I mean, like some of the all-time greats. Some of the all-time greats.
It's a great offensive ecosystem. They're going to feed him the ball. They just paid him more money this offseason, and the reason they paid him was because they think he's going to handle a big workload. So, like, I'm not arguing against you. I'm just making the point that if someone saw this slightly differently than we do, totally understandable.
Totally get it. Like, yes, totally get
draft opportunities. And I'd rather draft Derrick Henry later and get those same opportunities in an offense that's going to be maybe the best offense in football, was last year best rushing offense. So a lot to like there. I want to ask you about Malik Neighbors. He's your ideal number 1 at 107, playing with either Russell Wilson or whoever. Does it really matter to you who his quarterback is?
I mean, I'd rather see it be Russell or Jameis, to be honest with you. And I know at some point it's going to be Jackson Dart. We just don't know what he's going to be, in the NFL. But then again, he's still better than the curtain jerkers they had throwing him the ball last year. Okay, Daniel Jones before he got cut, and this guy here, you know who this guy is?
Yeah,
that's right,
Tommy.
That's right, the Paisan. So they're all 3 better than what he had last year. I can make an argument, Bob Harris, that now
also,
I know
Drew Lock and Tim Boyle. He played with 4 quarterbacks last year.
Right, exactly. Now, Neighbors has got a bit of a boo-boo, but he says that they're going to manage it. He's going to be fine. He's good to go. I believe it's the foot.
It's a toe.
The toe is part of the foot. Yes.
Right. It's been an issue going back to his time at LSU. I don't think they're especially worried about it, but it is something
I can make a pretty compelling argument why Malik Neighbors will be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football this season. I can. I mean, Jamar Chase, love him.
Sure.
Guys who score 17 touchdowns at wide receiver the single season typically see not a significant decline, but a decline. So if Jamar comes out and has 12 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, really good year, not as good as last season. Jamar Chase is coming off his magical season, Bob Harris.
It's true.
So I can see Neighbors, also an LSU dude, in an offense that's going to have to score points because I don't know how good they're going to be. Although they've certainly gotten better on the defensive side of the football. They're going to be able to rush the passer. There's no question about that. But Neighbors, I can make an argument that he's going to be better than CeeDee Lamb. He's going to be better than, although, I statistically don't hope that since he's a Cowboy. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I can make an argument that he's going to be better than all these players. So getting him at 7, I feel pretty good right there.
Yeah, and I think that's totally true. And so I want to go through your 109, 110, 111, 112, and then we'll talk about some of these more in depth. Pick 109, if you have that pick. Your ideal build would be Ashton Genty in round 1, followed by Drake London or A.J. Brown, followed by McConkey or Wilson. Pick 110, Devon Achane, followed by Brian Thomas Jr. or Drake London in round 2, followed by McConkey or JSN in round 3. Pick 111, Puka Nacua, followed by BTJ or London, followed by McConkey and JSN. And then 112, Brian Thomas Jr., London and A.J. Brown, or A.J. Brown and Chase Brown or James Cook. You're going to be drafting, obviously, a little later in round 3 if that's the case. So let's talk about a little bit about that. So look, Ashton Jeanty, just give me the quick rundown on your expectations this year.
Everything you've heard in camp is positive. People compare him to Alvin Kamara. He is a 3-down back in an offense under Chip Kelly that has had success with running backs in the past. We know that Pete Carroll loves to utilize one running back during Seattle. His tenure there, Marshawn Lynch to a degree, Chris Carson, when it was a featured back. I mean, you don't draft a running back that high in the actual NFL draft, Bob, and not, utilize him to the fully extent. There's not going to be any committee situations there. Between him and Brock Bowers, the Raiders suddenly have, 2 of the top, 15 picks in fantasy football drafts. And, there's always the risk of the unknown. I mean, he's never played in the NFL before. He's had a lot of touches during his time at Boise State, but he's a young guy. And the Alvin Kamara comparisons just excite me. And I've seen a lot of those. I have no problem drafting him in the top 10 overall. And then if I can get Jeanty, then I'm definitely going wide receiver in rounds 2 and 3.
For sure.
And then depending on where I'm at in terms of what's left, I may draft a wide receiver in round 4 before I take another running back in round 5.
You have Devon Achane as your 110, expecting high volume. Do you have concerns about the Miami offense in general, or is he kind of aside from that? He is impervious to whatever struggles Miami's offense might have, because we kind of saw that last year.
Yeah, I mean, even still, he was, one of the better running backs in fantasy football. He's young. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a playmaker. And, the Dolphins, when they traded away Jonnu Smith, lost one of their big playmakers. Not lost, but they dealt him. Right. This is a guy who had 111 targets last season. I mean, over 80 catches. So I think there's some other opportunities there for Achane as well. Don't give me Darren Waller, please. That's just not going to happen. It's not going to be a thing. But Achane is to me a back of the first round pick at the running back spot. And then you can still get 2 wide receivers who are pretty damn good in round 2 and round 3 after taking Achane being at the 110.
Right. I agree with that. Now, Puka Nacua, we have Devontae Adams coming in. We saw what happened to Garrett Wilson when Adams came in last year. The numbers totally diminished. I know Matt Waldman at Football Guys, the rookie scouting portfolio author, contends that, Adams is going to cut significantly into the workload. And I think this ADP, by the way, reflects that a little bit. I think they're going to be fairly close together. I think Adams is definitely going to outperform his ADP. But your thoughts on Puka in this offense?
So if you look at some of the ADP data, I mean, Puka's going like 7th. That's just too high for me. And you brought it up. Devontae Adams comes in and it hurts Puka's ceiling to a degree, but also then let's look historically at Sean McVay's offenses. Sure. They've supported 2 wide receivers.
3 of the 4 years with Matthew Stafford on, they've had 2 top 24 receivers. And we've seen 2 top 12 receivers multiple occasions in his offense.
You can go back to Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. I mean, there's, they've had some wide receivers who have been very good from a fantasy standpoint. This is certainly their best duo. But I worry about Adams a little bit, Bob, because although he's very young in terms of real life, he's 32 and he's going to another team and Aaron Rodgers isn't the quarterback. And I know Matthew Stafford's phenomenal. Puka's going to be number 1 and maybe Adams is 1A. I'm not worried about Puka so much. Now, if Adams wasn't there and you're throwing out some of these other guys that have a wide receiver, then, Puka rises up. Adams did come in and hurt his value a little bit. That's why I'm surprised he's going at 7. His ADP is higher than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Malik Neighbors. Are people drunk out there? I don't understand. I don't understand the logic. Maybe I'm drunk. I don't know. But Puka Nacua, as great as he is, remember, he missed a lot of games last year. But I do think this Rams offense can support 2 very good wide receivers. I do wonder if Adams starts to see a decline, because it's got to be coming at some point. It has to. Just because, Father Time is undefeated, unless you're talking about Bob Harris, who just gets better looking and more intelligent as time goes on. I don't know how you do it. You owe me $20. But Puka at 11 feels good to me. That feels safe to me. And then I can get, maybe a BTJ or a London at the top of round 2, or right near the top of round 2, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Brian Thomas Jr. was phenomenal down the stretch last year, playing mostly with Mac Jones down the end of the season. I think last 3 weeks of the season, he was wide receiver one on a points per game
It was
basis
awesome.
with
It was
Mac
awesome.
Jones. You expect him to pick up and carry that on where he left off, or do you have concerns with
I
the
mean,
new
I'm
coach?
always when a guy puts up numbers like that, you always have a little bit of concern, right, Bob? Because that's hard to duplicate.
Yeah.
Like the
This,
same thing, like I'll give you an example with Johnny Smith. Now, say that he had, not been traded and he stayed in Miami. His numbers in the second half of the season were unsustainable. Unsustainable. He was going bananas every week. And the same thing to a degree is true of Brian Thomas Jr. Like, you've also got Travis Hunter, who I think is going to play wide receiver a bunch. And I mean, we're certainly not 100% sure of what, that unicorn is going to be doing, although I did draft him in Scott Fish because what the hell? But, could there be, I don't know that last season was his ceiling, Bob, but it might have been pretty close.
right.
Because he was a top 5 receiver in fantasy.
Right.
It might have been close. But at the end of the draft, and I don't even mind drafting at the end. Listen, I don't care where I draft. Okay. Wherever I draft, I'm going to have a great team and I'm going to beat Bob Harris. And that's all that matters. Even
some interesting points. I see here. AJ Brown, I have concerns about. I think he's a great player. Wonder about that passing volume as long as Saquon Barkley's there.
Well, what happens if Saquon,
Well, what if? I mean, I'm not going to go in. That's not my plan. What if is not my plan? That's never my strategy.
That's what we all are like. That's our mindset is what if.
Well,
like
those are things you rectify later in your draft. You're not drafting early as if what if, like, oh, I'm not going to draft Christian McCaffrey because of the curse or the Madden or whatever.
I'm not drafting Christian McCaffrey because the guy's always hurt, and I'm not taking him. If McCaffrey's on the board in the second round, top of the second round, I'll think about it.
This is the portion where I remind people I'm injury agnostic. Michael Fabiano is not.
How can you be injury agnostic with a guy who's played 7 or fewer games in 3 of the last 5 years?
Well, the previous 2 years he was pretty well on point, and I like the anticipated volume. Look, I have
to
mitigate.
Were you injury agnostic with Fred Taylor?
Yes. So look, you draft for a player being healthy, and then you mitigate that risk later in your draft with either handcuffs or other insurance policies or other players who can step in and provide.
Did it not concern you that he didn't look great in the 4 games he played last season?
No, not especially. I mean, it's not unusual to see players coming off injuries not perform well. Tony Pollard, it took him how long? Almost a year to get off his to get over what it was until week 10. He broke his leg against San Francisco in the playoffs 2 years ago, was it 3 years ago? And then it took him to week 10 the next season before he was up to full speed. Isaiah Pacheco last year comes off a broken leg. Didn't look like the same guy. I think he might be close to that.
You're comparing 2 guys who are not even close to being as valuable as McCaffrey.
I'm just saying the injury situation, he seems to be in a good spot now. So I'm not going to panic over the injuries. I am going to say, like AJ Brown, I'm a little worried about the passing volume. There are 100 fewer attempts last year than the year before. And if they go follow the same plan, that's a little bit of an issue. So I prefer London, but so do you. It's not a big deal. It's just, and I would probably take Brown too if London wasn't there. I mean, I'm not like totally out on him, but I have concerns there. I noticed, and you've said it a couple times, but like I don't like paying the historic premium because historic seasons are few and far between. So I noticed no Brock Bowers in any of your top 3 pick builds.
Yeah, I don't want to take a tight end that early, Bob. I don't. And again, like I'll go. And again, once again, you'll make fun of me. And I love Brock Bowers. And I'm not telling you that Brock Bowers is not going to be, one of, if not the best tight end in fantasy football. But he had 112 catches last year. That was a rookie record. So to a degree, Bowers is also coming off of an historic season. And so if he comes out this year and has 85 catches for 900 yards and 8 touchdowns, that's really good. But it's not as good as it was last season. You've got Ashton Genty, who is, to me, going to be the centerpiece of the offense. If Bowers is 1A, Genty's certainly 1. You got a new quarterback. You got some new receivers. So, last year was last year. I like Bowers. Don't get me wrong. I don't want Bowers. I'm not paying the premium for him. I'm just not. I will wait at tight end. I will get a David Njoku. I will get a Jake Ferguson. I'll get a Evan Ingram, who I dig in Denver, and that offense giddy up. I can't do it. I will say this. I've never been a guy who likes to draft tight ends early. And the handful of times where I decided I'm going to do it just for the hell of it, it burned me. I'm not going there.
I'm with, like, I do think Bowers is, it's a high price and it is a historic season. I think Trey McBride going around later in the third round, I could make a better argument for, because I can tell myself a happy
Sure,
story about
sure.
positive touchdown regression. I could easily go with George Kittle in round 4 though, and that's been my normal target. Seasons when he's healthy, top 5 production almost guaranteed. You think with the
Mhm.
receiver issues, and of course Christian McCaffrey's going to get hurt, said Michael Fabiano. So we know that Kittle's going to be very busy there.
Listen, man, and I've said this on the podcast with my pal Marcus Mosher there on Locked On. Christian McCaffrey, if he was healthy and didn't get hurt so much, we could be talking about him being the best running back in the history of fantasy football, right up there with Daniel Thompson and Marshall Faulk and Priest Holmes, even though it was a smaller sample size, like the best. But I don't want to draft a guy in the first round when there is a big if to him. I want safety and security. Okay. I'm like that newborn baby. I'm, in the swaddling clothes. I want to feel nice and warm and comfy. And Christian McCaffrey will just give me agita all year long, especially if I'm not able to get Isaac Garendo, who will not be as good as Christian McCaffrey is supposed to be because you're drafting him so high. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Let me give you a couple of quick hitting questions. Like, when you're going for archetypical players, what is the ideal build for you? Is it the anchor RB first, followed by the alpha wide receiver, followed by the other pieces, or does it really matter? Is it more where the draft falls to you? I mean,
that's exactly it, Bob. People may want to. I like to have in my first 3 picks 2 wide receivers and a running back. I mean, in a perfect world, that's probably what I would prefer as well. But it'd probably be, and again, it depends on what's out there. So, but I've also in one of these builds, I went with 3 wide receivers right out of the gate, and I don't feel bad about it at all,
right.
because in round 4, I could potentially get a pretty good running back. Like
4 through 6.
Could what's that?
4 through 6, you can get good running backs. I mean,
exactly. Omarion Hampton. I love him so much. Anyways, did you hear that? I love Omarion Hampton, folks. Another Charger. I loved Ladd McConkey, Laddie Daddy last year, rookie. Boom. This year, Hampton. Boom. I love him. Especially, I don't know what's going on with Najee Harris. I hope he's okay. But I don't know what's going on with the eye and the fireworks and all that kind of stuff. So I love me some Omarion Hampton. And you can get value, as Bob just mentioned, round 4, round 5. So I am not adverse at all to going with 3 wide receivers. Clearly, obviously, that means I'm starting 2 wide receivers and my wide receiver at flex. It's a PPR league. I don't play in standard leagues. They're old and archaic like Bob Harris. So I'm surprised you haven't just slapped me right through this monitor right now. But it all depends on like what falls to me. And you know how it is, Bob. I mean, you've drafted a million times. I've drafted, 500,000 times. I haven't been around as long as you. And all these drafts are always different. They're always different. There's going to be situations where, wow, this player fell to me, in round 3. Well, I've got to take him. Or this running back is still on the board in round 2. Well, typically I go wide receiver, but geez Louise, I got to take this running back here. And then you audible and you adjust.
Yeah. By the way, rounds 4 and 5, you're getting Hampton, who apparently you like Omarion Hampton, Kamara, who you mentioned, Kenneth Walker III, Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
Good guys going into round 5. You get James Conner. So I'm with you there. And I think we both agree we're not eager to draft. We're not eager to pay the historic premium, whether it's Saquon Barkley, Brock Bowers, even Jamar Chase. I mean, you're probably taking him 1 overall, but that the outcomes there are varied. I think I like his role in a really high-powered offense, so I'm fine with that.
What do I always say, Bob? The only thing that's predictable about the NFL is its unpredictability, and weird stuff is going to happen, and you and I and every other analyst out there is going to be talking about it at the end of the season, where this guy fell off a cliff, Travis Etienne, what the hell happened to him last season? Tyreek Hill, same kind of thing. Second year in a row, a rookie tight end is the number 1 player at the position. Wow, that never happened before. And all of a sudden it's happening on a yearly basis. There's always weird things that happen. And at some point you got to think outside of the box. Okay. Now you don't want to get nuts. Okay. But you got to think out of the box. I think Drake May is going to finish as a top 12 potential quarterback this season. You look historically, guys who rush for over 600 yards at the quarterback position in a single season, they're almost always in the top 12. And all the reports about Drake May have been great. So, like, at this time next year, you and I could be talking about Drake May being a better fantasy quarterback than, say, Justin Herbert.
Right.
It is what it is. So you got to think a little bit outside the box. Like Bob Harris says, in his words of wisdom, in his many years of wisdom in the fantasy football community, don't draft last year's best team.
Right. And it is an oblong spheroid. It bounces funny ways. Keep that in mind. Keep in mind, you can follow Michael Fabiano on the X at Michael_Fabiano. He's the senior fantasy analyst at Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Also, this year, the co-host of the Lockdown Dynasty podcast with the great Marcus Mosher. You can listen to that every single day and check it out. It's a great show. He and Marcus do a great job talking deep dives on Dynasty and all the things you want to know. Again, follow him on X at Michael_Fabiano. Follow me at Football Die Hard. Find me at Football Guys. Find me here every Tuesday on the hot seat. And while we're here, I want to remind you, sign up for the Football Guys daily email update. It's the best news in football, biggest story, summarized, explained, and sent directly to your email inbox every single day. Can't miss out. It's great stuff, and it's completely free, only at footballguys.com. And that's it for this week's show. Come back next week when I'll go back on the hot seat.